The sun was just beginning to rise over the quiet town of Willow Creek. Soft beams of light stretched across the rooftops, turning them into a gentle gold. Birds chirped in the trees, filling the morning air with a melody that seemed almost like a greeting. James stood at the edge of the old bridge, staring at the river below. The water moved slowly, reflecting the pink and orange colors of the sky. He took a deep breath, feeling the crisp air fill his lungs. It had been a long journey to get here, a journey that had taken him far away from the home he once knew, yet he felt the pull of it now stronger than ever. James remembered the first day he had left Willow Creek. He had been eager, full of dreams and ambitions, believing the world beyond his town was waiting to teach him everything he could ever need. The streets of the city had seemed so alive, with cars rushing past, lights blinking endlessly, and people moving in all directions. At first, it had been exciting. He had found work, met new friends, and tasted freedom in a way that Willow Creek had never offered. But as the months turned into years, a quiet ache had grown in his heart. He missed the gentle laughter of the townspeople, the familiar smell of his grandmother's kitchen, and the soft, comforting silence of nights where the stars could be counted by anyone willing to try. He began to understand that the world outside was full of lessons. Yes, but it was also full of noise that never truly filled the emptiness inside. Every success felt smaller without someone to share it with, and every achievement seemed less meaningful without the warmth of familiarity. James realized that his heart had been wandering, even while his feet had been moving forward. The city had taught him how to survive, but it had not taught him how to feel at home. As he walked through the quiet streets of Willow Creek now, memories came rushing back. He passed the bakery where he used to buy cinnamon rolls and remembered the sweet aroma that seemed to greet every morning. He thought of Mr. Thompson, who always waved from the fence and never missed a chance to ask how James was doing. The simple greetings, the small smiles, the knowing nods, these were things that mattered more than anything in the city, things he had overlooked while chasing bigger dreams. The house at the end of Maple Street looked just the same as he remembered. The paint was slightly faded, and the garden had grown wilder than before, yet it had a charm that could not be replicated anywhere else. The windows reflected the sunlight in a way that seemed to invite him inside, and James felt a lump rise in his throat. He pushed open the gate, which creaked softly, and stepped onto the familiar path. Each step was heavy with memory, yet light with relief. He could hear the faint sound of a piano from the house. A tune his mother used to play every evening. Inside, the air was filled with a mixture of lavender and cinnamon, scents that brought him back to childhood instantly. His mother appeared in the doorway, her face lighting up as she saw him. She opened her arms, and he fell into them without hesitation. The warmth of her embrace washed over him, and all the years of distance melted away. He could hear the soft thump of his father's footsteps behind her, and soon, the room was filled with laughter, tears, and stories that had waited to be told for far too long. James spent that evening walking through the old house, touching the furniture that had been a part of his life, opening drawers to find old photographs, and listening to the whispers of the past in the corners of each room. He remembered the nights he had sat by the window, dreaming of the world beyond, and realized that now, those dreams had returned to him in a new form. They were not just about success or adventure anymore, they were about belonging, connection, and the quiet happiness that came from being home. The town seemed to welcome him in ways he had never noticed before. Children waved as he passed by, neighbors called out greetings, and even the stray cats on the streets rubbed against his legs as if they remembered him. Every familiar sound, smell, and sight brought a sense of peace that had been missing from his life for far too long. James understood then that coming back was not a step backward but a step toward completeness. That night, he sat on the porch with his parents, staring at the sky above. The stars were clearer here than in the city, shining like diamonds on black velvet. He could hear the river murmuring softly in the distance, the wind rustling the leaves, and the faint laughter of people settling into their homes. James took a deep breath and felt a sense of gratitude that filled him to the core. He knew that life would bring challenges again, that the world outside still held opportunities and risks, but for now, he was content. He had returned to the place where he belonged, and he realized that home was not just a building, but a feeling, a connection, a place where love and memory could meet. The following days were filled with reconnection. James visited the small grocery store where Mrs. Landon, who had known him since childhood, still worked behind the counter. She smiled warmly and asked about his travels, her eyes twinkling with curiosity. He shared a few stories, careful to keep them simple, knowing that the joy of sharing was more important than impressing anyone. They laughed together, and for a moment, he felt the same ease that had filled him as a child. He walked along the riverbank, recalling afternoons spent fishing with his father. The wooden boat was gone, but the memories of sitting side by side, sharing stories and jokes, were vivid. James closed his eyes and imagined the gentle rocking of the boat on the water, the smell of wet wood, and the sound of the fish splashing nearby. These memories were a comfort, a reminder that happiness could be found in simple moments. One afternoon, James met his old friend, Clara, who had grown into a kind and gentle woman. They walked through the town, visiting familiar spots. The playground where they had spent countless hours laughing, the hill where they had raced each other to see who could reach the top first, and the small cafe by the bridge that had always served the best chocolate cake. Each place held stories, each corner held memories, and each step brought them closer to understanding the lives they had both led. Clara asked about the city and the work he had done there. James spoke honestly about his experiences, the excitement, the challenges, and the lessons learned. Clara listened carefully, nodding and smiling, and then shared her own story of staying behind, of nurturing the town in ways that mattered quietly but deeply. James realized that both paths had value, that life was not about choosing the bigger adventure but about learning from every path, every choice, and every heart that touched ours along the way. As the days passed, James began to help around the town. He assisted Mr. Thompson with the garden, learning the patience and care needed to grow flowers that would bloom for everyone to see. He helped at the community center, sharing stories of the world beyond Willow Creek, inspiring children to dream while also teaching them the value of roots and belonging. He discovered joy in these small acts, in the smiles of people who remembered him, in the connections that were deepened with each kind gesture. One morning, James decided to visit the old library, a place that had always been a sanctuary for him. The librarian, Mrs. Clark, recognized him immediately, and they shared a warm embrace. The smell of old books, the quiet atmosphere, and the rows of stories waiting to be discovered made him feel at peace. He wandered through the aisles, pulling out a few favorite books, flipping through pages, and remembering the hours he had spent reading as a boy. He realized that stories, much like home, were timeless. They waited patiently, ready to welcome anyone back who was willing to return. James also spent time reflecting on his life in the city. He wrote letters to old friends, sharing his newfound understanding of home and connection. He thought about the lessons he had learned about ambition, patience, and the importance of love and care in everyday life. He realized that true wisdom was not only in seeing the world but in appreciating the place you come from, the people who shaped you, and the moments that leave a lasting mark on your heart. One evening, a storm rolled in, bringing rain and thunder to Willow Creek. James watched from the porch, the droplets splashing against the wooden rails. He felt a sense of renewal as the rain washed over the town, clearing away dust and leaves, and bringing the air to life. Inside, his parents sat near the fireplace, sharing stories of their youth, of challenges they had faced, and of the love that had always guided them. James listened, absorbing every word, feeling the strength and resilience of the family that had always been there, waiting quietly for him to return. After the storm passed, the world seemed brighter, fresher. James walked through the town, noticing the beauty in small details he had once overlooked, the vibrant green of the grass, the sparkle of the river under the sun, the laughter of children playing outside, and the way neighbors helped each other without being asked. He realized that home was not only about the past but also about the present, about creating moments that mattered, and about finding beauty in the everyday. James also reconnected with his grandmother, who had always been a quiet source of wisdom and comfort. She shared stories of her own youth, of choices made and lessons learned, and James listened, feeling the bond between generations. They baked together in the kitchen, the aroma of bread and spices filling the air, and James felt a sense of continuity, understanding that life was a series of connections, each one building upon the last. Weeks passed, and James felt a peace he had never known in the city. He spent mornings walking along the river, afternoons helping the community, and evenings sitting with family and friends. He reflected on his journey, understanding that leaving had been necessary to discover the true value of home. And returning had been necessary to embrace it fully. Every smile, every shared story, every quiet moment contributed to a life that felt complete. One afternoon, James and Clara walked up the hill overlooking the town. They sat on the grass, watching the sunlight dance across the rooftops and the river below. Clara turned to him and said, "You seem different, more at peace." James smiled, realizing that he was. He felt a deep sense of gratitude, knowing that life had brought him full circle, that every step of his journey had led him to this moment, to this feeling of being truly home. As the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant shades of pink and orange, James understood that home was not just a place. It was a feeling, a connection, a collection of moments, memories, and people that shaped who he was. He knew that the world would continue to offer challenges, adventures, and opportunities, but he also knew that he carried home within him, in his heart, ready to guide him through every twist and turn. And so, James stayed in Willow Creek, embracing life with new eyes. He learned that the greatest journey is often the one that brings you back to where you belong, where love waits patiently, where memories linger, and where every day offers the quiet joy of belonging. He spent his days fully aware of the beauty in small things, the importance of relationships, and the power of home. He realized that life was not about escaping, chasing distant dreams, or proving himself to the world. It was about understanding, appreciating, and connecting. It was about laughter shared over simple meals, quiet walks along familiar paths, stories told and retold, and the comfort of knowing that he was part of something larger, something enduring. The river continued to flow, the wind continued to whisper through the trees, and the stars continued to shine each night. And James, at last, felt the complete peace that comes from being home, from being connected, and from embracing every moment of life with love, gratitude, and understanding. He smiled, listening to the soft murmur of the world around him, and felt a happiness that was steady, quiet, and deep. Home had welcomed him back, and he knew he would never take it for granted again. And as the night fell over Willow Creek, James whispered a silent promise to himself, to treasure every moment, to embrace every connection, and to always remember that the greatest journey is the one that brings you back to where your heart belongs. He turned toward the warm lights of his house, feeling the love, the peace, and the sense of belonging that had been waiting for him all along. And he knew, in that quiet moment, that life had finally brought him exactly where he needed to be. The soft glow of the house seemed to smile at him as he stepped inside. Ready for whatever tomorrow would bring, confident that the foundation of home would always guide him. And with a contented heart, James finally rested, surrounded by the people and the place he loved, understanding fully that he was exactly where he was meant to be. And so, the journey back home was complete, yet it was also just the beginning of a new life, one filled with gratitude, connection, and the quiet joy of truly belonging. I share stories like this every day. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.